Hey, what's good, y'all? So yeah, the nurse that tried to help out and tried to save Takeoff speaks out. I'm gonna let her do the talking. So, you know, let's get to it.
I heard pow, 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 and it stopped. And I went, that's so weird. So I got up in my pajamas, go over to the balcony. My neighbors were underneath me. I said, did y'all hear that? And they said, yeah. I said, I don't think that was a car or firecrackers. That sounded like gunshots. So then we saw people running. I was like, oh my God, that's an active shooter. So I wasn't in my head at that moment. I'm thinking I'm not going anywhere. Okay. But then I saw people settle down and go back, and I heard the uncle go, ah! He was screaming, ah! So I'm thinking that's the victim. That's the person who shot. It sounded like a cry of agony. It was a cry of agony, but emotional, not physical. And they were crying out for. So then they're coming out looking for the ambulance. Where's the ambulance? Somebody help! So then they're looking for help, and they're going towards where the shooting was. So I'm thinking, okay, scene is safe. Somebody's hurt. Man down. I got things that could help. I'm an infusion nurse. I have a whole trunk full of stuff, right? But threw on some clothes, got my stuff out of my trunk, and ran over there. And you can hear my voice in the video. I'm a nurse. No, I'm a nurse. Because I wanted to let them know. So I started saying that from the bottom floor. And they said, take the elevator. So I came up the elevator. And they started pulling on me, like, to come quickly. And that's when I was like, no. Like, leave me alone. Because I was like this, too. I was scared. But I had to go. Because if somebody was shot in the leg, in the arm, somewheres where maybe they don't have the tourniquet on right. Maybe he finally does collapse and they don't know how to do CPR the correct way. I mean, for minutes, I could at least do that. And not only am I risking that, but legally I am not protected in the state of Texas.
And when you
for a Good Samaritan Act. So, because I am a nurse. So when I got there, I looked at him. His head was this way and up, and his eyes were rolled back and fixed. And I saw a pile of blood behind his head. I didn't see where the gun was shot. I've stopped for car accidents before. I never move the patient. Rule number 1, don't touch him. Because if it was something in his neck that could have been taken care of, I don't want to move his neck. And then he's paralyzed, then I'm in trouble, right? No, don't move it.
people on social media are saying, why didn't you do CPR and this kind of thing? That would not be appropriate?
That would not be appropriate, especially with a gunshot wound. You would never do CPR because you would be circulating the blood and the blood would go right out of the hole. So the first thing to do is to put pressure on the wound. That was too late. I checked his pulse. Plus, it was probably, I heard it 2:30ish or so. I was back calling my daughter. The phone call was at 3:16 in the morning. It's on my phone. 3:16 is when I called her. So I was already back, shook up. And when I called her, it was more like, ah! And she's like, Mom, so are you okay? Slow down. Because she's a nurse too. And so I'm calling her like, oh my God.
Did you know who he was?
No clue. It was my 28-year-old girlfriend that's a nurse that said, do you know who that is? And I'm like, who? No clue. He was a human being. That's it.
Talk a little bit more about what you just said. You said you were scared, but you had to go.
Hold up, I want to stop it right there. Shout out to her for not knowing who it is, but still wanting to help, still wanting to save that man's life because it's a human being. You know? Sometimes it's just still good to hear that because motherfuckers just pull out their phones and start recording and they don't want to help shit. You know what I mean? Let's get back to it.
Because I heard somebody crying out for help. And I thought at least I could get them stabilized or just sit there with them until the EMS got there. I've stopped for like car accidents and stuff before. I don't move them out of the vehicle. but I'll hold their hand. One of the ladies, I went and got her child out of school. I took the child to the hospital. You know, I could be helpful in other ways. I don't have to, you know, and make sure EMS is getting there. So if CPR did need to be started, absolutely I'd start it. I get in trouble, but
When you realized it was too late, you saw what you saw, and then the ambulance came. Did you stay for that? And then what happened after that? Because I know once you know.
I didn't stay for the ambulance, but they were there. I heard they were there, so I left the scene. I was pretty shaken up. I checked his pulse. I checked the carotid pulse. I checked it on here. I checked again.
You knew he was coming.
I can't pronounce someone dead, but I think he was deceased, probably. Assumptions are made. This is an assumption on impact, probably. Didn't take long.
And you mentioned you've been doing this almost 30 years. You've never seen this type of trauma in person?
No. I mean, I've handled emergent situations, but I've never I'm not an ER nurse, so no gunshot wound kind of thing. Patients bleeding out, yeah, I've for different reasons, post-surgery, that kind of thing, yeah, I've handled those situations.
Can you recall what it was like around you while you were trying to assist him with other
The uncle was very distraught. I mean, after I told him, I said, no. And I started crying, and he grabbed me, and he's like, please, please. And I started bawling, and I was like, then I came back across the street. My neighbors were out, and I was crying, and I'm like, you know, typical nurse, I was beating myself up. I should have gone sooner. What if I would have been 5 minutes sooner? Sorry.
What would you say to people questioning your actions or anything?
I don't really care.
Did you see the other people who were shot as well?
They were already gone.
Okay.
All I know is he's a 28-year-old male, and that's my son over there. And somebody is his mother.
Man. Shout out to that woman, man. Shout out to that woman. At the end of the day, we all human. If you can help, help. If you can save somebody, save somebody. Don't just be so quick to pull out your phone and record, man. This shit ain't about whatever you gonna get from that video. It ain't about that. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. That way you get the notifications so you never get caught slipping.